Creepypasta time. In the apocalypse, I work for a company that exterminates mutated animals. There's a reason cows scare me the most. As I said, there's ample reason for me to be scared of mutated cows more than any other creature in the wastes. Maybe it's the very specific experiences I've had with them. My former partner in crime, Rick, was killed by one of them, and he was part of the reason why I had to travel to one of the many caverns riddling this particular area of the wastes. The other reason was Liam, Rick's son. I kept arguing with him as we approached the entrance to the cavern. "Well, how the fuck will you know it's the one who killed Rick?" "Look, I want that thing dead as much as you do, but there's no way of," I started. Liam waved a hand dismissively. "I'll know, okay? Hey, you let him die to begin with. I know you probably think Rick was a coward, a lot of people did, but he deserves to have his death avenged." Liam never talked about his dad much, but I could detect the emotion in his voice. Rick meant a lot to the boy. And I guess I owed it to both of them to see this through. As I left the entrance, Silver, Liam's former horse, he gave it to me without much hassle, offered a smile of such maliciousness my heart skipped a beat. The demonic essence we encountered at Cal's ranch somehow got into it, but I couldn't say anything to Liam. Part of my own recently deceased horse's soul was also in there, and I couldn't risk something happening to the horse if Liam found out. We entered the cavern, but I wasn't able to stop thinking about that evil grin. Something told me Silver knew what was going to happen to us, as if he had some sort of connection to what was inside. The initial tunnel twisted and turned, and became significantly narrower as we progressed. It eventually opened up into a large cavern, and we turned on our flashlights. Suddenly, Liam grabbed his head and collapsed to the ground. Once I was able to wake him, he groggily mumbled something about a nightmare. Something about his dad. "Maybe this is too much for you, Liam." "Maybe we should," I said. "No. I can handle this," he replied, but I wasn't convinced. At the end of the large space, we found another twisting tunnel and followed that to another decently sized cavern. We placed flares all over, to give us extra lighting. The flashlights weren't covering it. What they illuminated scared the shit out of me, though. There were at least 4 mutated cows in the room with us, jaws opening wide, beady white eyes now open and staring at us with the hunger of predators. Liam cursed and we opened fire on them. I killed one with a shot to the head, and Liam finished another off fairly quickly. The last 2 were a struggle, and in the semi-dark, partially confined space, I thought I was a gunner. We managed to kill one with a combined effort, but the last one leapt on top of me, and I struggled to keep its massive weight from crushing me. Liam shot it straight in the eyes, pushing it off me in great force. "I just saved your ass again," Liam joked, breathing heavily. He pulled me up, and I could see him grinning playfully, almost happily. The vengeance had done him good. Then I heard the scraping of claws on dirt. "Hello, Liam," a horribly mutated voice said. As strange as this will seem, it sounded like one of those things, yet vaguely human. It came forward out of the darkness, revealing its ghastly face. It took one of its clawed hands and used it to remove the top of its head. "Liam," the creature said. "Don't you recognize your father? I'm here, at least in brain form. Cows love brains, you know. Not eating them, no. We use them to gain sentience." "Liam, let me take care of this," I interjected. The cow came closer, eyes shining fiercely white, the light of the flares making Liam's dad's brain glisten. Liam backed up, his stoic nature evaporating in favor of being completely petrified. The gun shook in his hands. I readied my own, preparing myself to fire in case Liam couldn't get a grip. "Liam, I don't want to be the one to pull the trigger, but you have to snap out of it. This might be your dad's brain doing the talking, but something happened to him. He'll eat you alive if you don't come to your senses," I said. But Liam wasn't snapping out of it, not even close. He just backed up against the rocky cavern wall, holding his arms with his hands. He'd already dropped the gun. As the cow stood up on its legs and lumbered closer, I hesitated with the gun in my hands. Clearly, Liam wasn't in a state of mind to make decisions. My finger quivered, and finally I yanked both eyes shut and fired. I wasn't sure which area I had hit, but I went over to make sure it was dead. Its stone-cold eyes stared at me blankly. I went over to Liam, helped him up, and he went over to his bag and took out a long, serrated blade. "You've killed my dad twice now," Liam said angrily. "I think you should have the honors of decapitating him." "Liam, I'm sorry. I didn't want to kill him, but you abandoned your senses. I had to do something. And no offense, why would I sever his head? There's no point. I have plans for him. I'll explain later. Let's do it and get out of here. I sighed and got to work. A while later, we were outside the cavern, full night offering a buffet of stars. Silver grinned wickedly when Liam wasn't looking, and I shuddered, but it got me to thinking. You knew cows were capable of this, I said. Of taking the brains of their prey and using them to gain sentience. You bet on the one who killed your dad would still have it attached, if it was still alive, but I'm not getting what you want with his head. Seriously, I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, but what the fuck, Liam? Liam's expression hardened. Let's just say my dad's legacy in this wasteland is just beginning, Liam replied. Hours later, I was at the stable, staring at the stars as I combed Silver's mane. As scared as I was of the thing, part of Rio was also inside it, and I found it tamed him to some degree. Alright, you gave me that look twice now, Silver. I don't know what exactly, but you know something. Just tell me. This time, Silver curled his lips in a way that gave them an unnatural ripple effect. His eyes were obsidian abysses, and the cruelly humorous expression on his face was unmistakable. Silver chuckled. If either you or Liam had a brain, maybe then you'd realize the cow's brain has already gone missing. Brain? I asked, confused. Silver chuckled again, making me shiver with fear. Rick's brain, poisoned by the cow's cradle. Where it has chosen to go now, I cannot say. After I left Silver, I wandered the compound, wondering what the fuck he was talking about. It wasn't until I bumped into Jeremiah in one of the outside training areas that I finally figured it out. Jeremiah turned to look at me, eyes like ghostly beams. It was only a flicker, and then they returned to normal. Was there something you needed, Miles? I hope whatever it is won't take long. I've an early morning with a few prospective hunters, Jeremiah said, seeming somehow drunk, yet oddly in control of himself. I knew I couldn't let on that I saw the white flash in his eyes, so I smiled as affably as I could. No, just checking to make sure you were all right before heading back to the portal. Have a good night, Jeremiah, I said. I turned to leave, then he cleared his throat. By the way, excellent job on clearing out the cow stronghold. You've made the wastes safer and made Liam proud. Perhaps now he can focus on the contracts assigned to him rather than personal scores to settle. Jeremiah's thick gray eyebrows were raised, and his expression bordered on sadistic amusement. I headed for home, back to the portal. I chose not to say goodbye to Liam. The secrets seemed to be piling up, first with Silver, then with my decision to not say anything about how Rick's brain scuttled into a human cradle. This situation was to be handled very carefully, if both Liam and I were to survive. If he knew, he might make a rash decision to get us both killed. In order to rationalize this line of thought, I conjured up the horrifying experience in the caverns earlier. None of that would have happened if Liam hadn't pressured me into avenging the death of his father. Of Rick. On the lonely road to the portal, I spotted them. A few skinless cows off in the distance, jaws stretching as if to accommodate a human feast. Of course, they'd save the brain to put in their skulls, I thought as I headed through the portal. I wouldn't be sleeping much that night.